What is going on, guys? We got a brand new video. I know we haven't had one in a while, but we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Today's video is going to be my top 5 fish for beginner aquarists. As we change lighting here, we're going to go ahead and jump right in to number 5. My number 5 fish is going to be the neon tetra, which are the ones with the blue and red here, 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 and there's a few more in here hiding. As you can see, I got a moderately planted tank here. The neon tetra I found is pretty relatively easy to care for. One of my first fish I ever got was a neon tetra years ago. This is when I was back in elementary school, and it was alive in 1 gallon that I never changed water on really, and fed him a bunch. So although he probably wasn't in the best conditions, he lived for 6 years. So they can be a relatively hardy fish, as long as you get them from a good source. The last thing I would like to say about the neon tetra is they are a schooling fish, so I would say keep them in groups of 3 or more. Of course, the more, the better the schooling action you're going to see out of them. Now we're going to go ahead and move right on in to number 2, which is going to be the guppy, which is all the other fish in here, besides this one, which is a platy. So pretty much all these here are guppies. The more vibrant looking ones are the males, and the less vibrant looking ones, like this one here, where's the other ones? Right here. They are going to be the females, and the other way you can tell, which is not going to be easy to show on camera, at least with this camera, maybe if I had a better one it would be, the little fin they have on the males is going to be, you can't tell again, it's going to be long and sleek. I'll put pictures up on the screen. And for females, it's going to be like fat and wide. And that's the same for pretty much all of the main live berries you're going to be seeing. But the guppies especially loved hard water. Most of these fish that I'm showing in the list today have a pretty wide range of conditions you can keep them in. Maybe not so much the neon tetras, that's why they're number 5, and not number 4, like the guppy here. Guppy, go-to fish. You can keep them in a 5-gallon. Right here, they're in a 10-gallon. As long as you keep up on your water changes and you have good filtration, you can really keep them in a 5-gallon. Preferably a 10-gallon or more would be even better. Moving on to number 3 is going to be the molly. Now there are so many different types of mollies. I'm going to go ahead and just bunch of collage of different mollies on the screen right now. The very first molly, and in fact the only molly that I've ever kept, was one of my first fish I had in my 29-gallon, and that is the black molly. They're some of my favorite mollies, but there are so many different variants of mollies. You could go on for hours talking about mollies. They're very good and hardy fish. One thing I would have to say about them is whenever I see them, I see a lot of fungal problems. At least where I live. Maybe that's not where you live. Maybe you're getting your fish from a different, your pet store is getting them from a different person. But the fish that I get usually have fungal problems, so I have to treat for fungus usually. But, again, maybe that won't be the case for you where you're getting your fish. But where I got my mollies, fungus was a problem. To end it off for the mollies, I would say keep them in no smaller than a 10-gallon. Of course you could. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it will be easier for most people 10-gallon and up, along with most of the fish on this list. Moving on to number 2 is the Betta fish. Now right here I have my Betta fish, Cherry. And one thing about bettas is they actually do like warmer water compared to what people normally think. They think, okay, you get a bowl, you put the Betta fish in the bowl, and you're good. Not necessarily. As you can see, on the right here is my heater, and on the left is my filter. And one thing bettas do not like, they're not a big fan of high flow. So as you can see, I do not have that filter on very high flow. I usually have it about anywhere from 75 to 78, really it fluctuates. In the summer in this tank it gets a little bit warmer than it does in the winter. As you can see, I got a moss ball in here. It is always good to have some type of live plant to help if you're not going to be doing as many water changes as you should. I usually try to do water changes about once a week, maybe really varies on 10 to 25%, and that goes for all of my tanks. So look at her. She's having a blast, isn't she? One thing that I would say you can keep bettas really, this is a 2.5 gallon. I personally don't like putting them in bowls because it's just too cramped with all the heater and the filter and everything. So make sure I personally, I'm not saying you can't keep them in a bowl, but I find they are much more happy and like it a lot better when you have them in something like a 2.5 gallon, where they got some room to swim around. Maybe you put a couple plants in here, or a few moss balls, as I have. And I do have some snails in here, but she has been eating the snails, so there's that little problem, but it's not that big of a deal. But we got Betta fish as my number 2 beginner fish. Very hardy fish. She loves eating, as most Betta fish do. Another thing on Betta fish, with the males specifically, you hear about female sororities, and those can work in bigger tanks, but the males are very aggressive, and if you put males together, they will kill each other, and it will not end well. Some ways that I have found to tell that your Betta is healthy is if they're moving, they're swimming, quite frequently, like my fish is. They always have a good appetite, which she does every time. I usually feed every other day with all my tanks. She always is ready to eat, and I usually give her 3 to 5 pellets, maybe 6, depending on how I am. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about foods and what you should be feeding all these fish. So we'll get to that at the end, so make sure to stay tuned for that. My number 1 fish for beginner aquarists is the zebra Danio. Now with zebra Danios, they are some of the most hardy fish I have found. The one problem I have with zebra Danios is when you get them in, they're pretty much treated like dirt. So the problem I have is getting them healthy. Like, you get them healthy, they're okay. But I'm usually getting zebra Danios in bad condition. So I usually get them, they're sick, or there's something wrong with them, and I have to doctor them up and get them healthy and looking better. That is the thing. People don't treat them good because they're very cheap. Around here, they're like $1.80. That is a very cheap fish. So, they import, maybe 100 of them or 50 of them, and they're not in the best conditions because they're just seen as like a throwaway fish almost. So once you get them good and looking good, healthy, eating well, they will be a great beginner fish. They love to chase each other around. I had a school of 9 or 10 of them, and they would sit there, and I got some good schooling action out of them. They were all synced up, going back and forth in my 29 gallon, and then sometimes they'd be chasing each other around, and it's very awesome to watch those fish chase each other. They don't really chase or nip at any other fish. Mostly they just keep it in within themselves. One more thing with zebra Danios is they're a schooling fish, so I would keep them in groups of 3 or more. Of course, the more you have, the better schooling action you're going to get out of them. So, as I said, I had 9 of them in a group, and it was beautiful watching them school back and forth. So, of course, the more the better. Keep up on your water changes, make sure you have good filtration, and let's go ahead and get on to the food. Pretty much for what you want to feed all of these fish, they pretty much take almost the same thing. Excluding the bettas, I try to give them their own specialized betta food. I recommend omega-1 food. That seems to be what my betta likes the most. I've tried some of the Tetra brand, and she seems to go more crazy for the omega-1 food. Now, with all the other fish on the list, I just feed, a nice staple food like a flake food, and then maybe once a week you feed like frozen bloodworms or frozen brine shrimp. And then another thing you might want to do once a week, or maybe every other week, however you want to, work it out. Feed them a vegetable of some type, whether it be green beans, whether it be zucchini, cucumber. Sometimes it's hard to get them to eat zucchini or cucumber because it's more of like a pleco or a corydora. But I've chopped it up before and they have eaten it. So green beans seems to be the thing that's the easiest for them to eat. It's easier for them to pick it off, easier than it is zucchini or cucumber. And you always want to boil it all before you feed it to them. But make sure you give all your fish a good varied diet, no matter the type, whether it be the guppy, the neon tetra, or even an African cichlid, which isn't even on this list. But that's going to be all for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. their own species. But that is going to be it for this video. If you guys have any other questions, make sure and leave them down in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.